Chosen one, pause for a moment. This is not a random video. If you're hearing this right now, something has already shifted behind the scenes. God is saying, the transfer you've been praying about is no longer delayed. It's been authorized. Before your phone lights up with any alert, a decision has already been made in the spiritual realm. This isn't just about money hitting your account. It's about value being restored, honor being returned, and doors unlocking that were closed for a reason. You thought the waiting meant denial, but God says it was preparation. The pressure you survived qualified you for this release. Listen carefully, because what you hear next will help you recognize the moment instead of missing it. This message found you on purpose, and what's moving toward you now cannot be stopped. Before you get lost in this video, you must first do 3 things to connect with God's energy. First, you must like the video, and then leave a comment, "Thank you, God, for choosing me." And finally, you must send your signal to the universe by subscribing to the channel. The transfer happened before you felt ready. Chosen one, this is something many people don't understand until later in life. The biggest changes rarely happen when you feel confident, excited, or fully prepared. They happen when you are tired, when your energy feels low, when you've stopped explaining your pain to people because you're not even sure how to put it into words anymore. God didn't wait for the moment when you felt strong on the outside. He moved when your heart was quiet, when you were still standing even though you were worn out inside. That's because real faith is not loud. Real faith shows up when you keep going without applause, without reassurance, and without clear signs. You may have thought, if God was really moving, I would feel happier by now. Or, if something was changing, I wouldn't feel this drained. But that's not how divine timing works. God often waits until you stop trying to control the outcome. When you reach that place where you say, "I don't know how this will work, but I can't carry this anymore," that's when movement begins. Not because you gave up, but because you finally trusted enough to release the weight. The transfer didn't begin when your prayers became more emotional or your words became more powerful. It began during the days you kept showing up without motivation, the nights you cried quietly so no one would hear you, the moments you wanted to quit but didn't. Endurance is a language God understands very clearly. Every silent sacrifice you made was noticed. Every time you chose patience over bitterness, something was being approved in your favor. That's why this season feels sudden. From your perspective, it looks like nothing was happening for a long time, and then all at once, everything starts shifting. But in reality, things were moving slowly and carefully behind the scenes. Doors were being aligned. People were being repositioned. Delays were actually protection. God was making sure that when the release came, it would not destroy you or overwhelm you. Divine timing always moves ahead of emotions. Your feelings lag behind what God is doing. You may still feel unsure, cautious, or even scared, but that doesn't mean nothing has changed. It means your heart hasn't caught up to the miracle yet. And that's okay. Faith doesn't require you to feel ready. It only requires you to stay open. So if you're wondering why this is happening now, when you feel least prepared, remember this. God doesn't choose moments based on comfort. He chooses moments based on readiness of the soul. You are more prepared than you think, because what prepared you was not excitement, it was survival. And now, what has already been set in motion will reach you at the right time, even if your emotions take a little longer to understand it. This is more than money, it's restoration. Chosen one, it's important to understand this clearly. What God is releasing into your life right now is not just about finances. Yes, money may be part of it, but the real work is happening much deeper. God is restoring parts of you that were slowly worn down by waiting, by being overlooked, and by having to stay strong for too long. Delay has a way of making people question themselves, and for a while, it may have made you wonder if you were doing something wrong. God is correcting that lie now. Some of you lost confidence, not because you failed, but because you tried so many times and saw no results. You showed up, you stayed honest, you did your part, yet nothing seemed to move. Over time, that can quietly damage your self-belief. God saw that. He saw how delay tried to shrink you, how it made you feel invisible or unimportant. This restoration is God's way of saying, I saw every effort, and you were never wrong for continuing. This release also restores dignity. There were moments when you had to ask for help when you didn't want to. Moments when you felt judged, compared, or misunderstood. Those experiences left marks. God is not ignoring that pain. He is healing it. Restoration brings you back into alignment with who you truly are, not who circumstances forced you to become. You're not meant to walk with your head down forever. God is lifting it again. Another thing being restored is your belief in yourself. Somewhere along the journey, you may have stopped trusting your own instincts. You started doubting your decisions, your ideas, your timing. God is returning clarity. You will notice that your thoughts feel calmer, your choices feel steadier, and your confidence feels natural again, not forced. This is a sign of inner restoration, and it always comes before outer blessings. When God restores, He doesn't just return things to how they were. He improves them. What comes back is stronger, wiser, and more stable than before. That's why this season feels different. There is less panic and more peace, less rushing and more understanding. What's coming will not steal your sleep or drain your energy. It will fit into your life in a healthy way. This is how you know it's from God. It brings peace instead of pressure. It allows you to breathe again. It reminds you of your worth without you having to prove anything. This restoration is God's way of saying, you survived and now you can receive. Why it took so long to arrive. Chosen one of the hardest questions you've carried is, why did this take so long? At times it felt unfair. At other times it felt personal, like you were being overlooked or tested more than others. But the truth is simple and gentle. You were never being punished. You were being protected. God was not holding things back to hurt you. He was holding them back to keep you whole. There was a version of you in the past that was still learning how to handle pressure, disappointment, and expectations. If the blessing had arrived back then, it would have added weight instead of relief. It might have fed fear, inflated ego, or tied your worth to outcomes. God knew that. He could see beyond the moment and into the future you couldn't yet imagine. So He waited, not because you weren't good enough, but because you were still becoming ready. During the delay, your heart changed. You learned patience in ways you never wanted to. You learned humility not because you were weak, but because life slowed you down long enough to listen. Your ego softened. You stopped needing validation from everyone. You stopped chasing things just to prove something. Those changes didn't happen overnight, but they mattered more than you realize now. Fear also lost its grip during this waiting season. Earlier, fear might have guided your decisions. Fear of lack, fear of rejection, fear of missing out. God waited until your choices started coming from wisdom, instead of panic. Now you're not reaching for blessings out of desperation. You're open to receiving them with balance and clarity. That's a powerful shift. Delay is often misunderstood. It feels like rejection when it's actually refinement. It strips away unhealthy attachments and teaches you how to stand steady even when nothing is guaranteed. Through waiting, you learned how to trust without constant reassurance. That trust is what makes this season different. Now, when the release comes, it feels calm. There's no rush, no chaos, no fear of losing it all tomorrow. You're not overwhelmed by what's arriving because you've already been shaped to handle it. Peace is your confirmation. God doesn't bless in ways that destroy you. He blesses in ways that sustain you. The pressure was the proof you were chosen. Chosen one, if your path has felt unusually heavy, it's not because you were unlucky or weak. It's because average journeys don't require deep endurance. Light assignments don't demand strong foundations. The pressure you experience was not random. It was intentional. God doesn't place weight on people who cannot carry it. The fact that you were stretched, tested, and pushed beyond what felt fair is proof that something greater was trusted to you. You may have looked around and wondered why others seemed to move forward with ease while you had to fight for every step. But what you couldn't see was that their paths and yours were not the same. God designs different roads for different purposes. Yours required depth, patience, and emotional strength, because what you're meant to handle later cannot rest on a fragile mindset. Pressure builds capacity, and capacity is what qualifies you for bigger responsibility. God tested things that people don't notice on the surface. He watched how you responded when things didn't work out. He observed whether you stayed honest when shortcuts were available. He paid attention to how you treated others when you were disappointed, tired, or misunderstood. These moments mattered more than public success. You weren't being judged for perfection. You were being observed for reliability. There were times you didn't feel strong at all. In fact, you may have felt unsure, discouraged, or close to giving up. But here's the truth. You kept going anyway. You showed up when no one was cheering for you. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. That consistency is what passed the test. You didn't even realize you were proving yourself, because real strength often feels like survival, not victory. That's why this transfer doesn't need approval from people. You don't need applause, explanations, or public validation. Heaven already approved it. God's confirmation doesn't come from opinions. It comes from alignment. What's arriving now isn't a reward for being seen. It's a result of being dependable when no one was watching. You'll notice signs. Before the alert arrives, chosen one. Before anything changes on the outside, something always shifts on the inside first. God never moves suddenly without preparing your inner world. That's why, even before any visible confirmation appears, you may start to feel different in quiet, gentle ways. Not excited or rushed, but lighter. It's subtle, yet noticeable. A weight you carried for a long time begins to lift, even though your situation may still look the same. One of the first signs is peace returning to your body. Your sleep slowly improves. Nights that were once restless become calmer. Your mind doesn't race the way it used to. You wake up feeling slightly more rested, even if nothing major has changed yet. This is not random. It's your nervous system finally being allowed to relax, because the pressure of waiting is ending. Anxiety also starts losing its grip. Things that once triggered fear or overthinking don't affect you the same way anymore. You stop replaying worst-case scenarios in your head. There's a quiet trust forming inside you. You may not be able to explain why you feel more grounded, but you do. That's because fear fades when certainty starts settling in. Another sign is your intuition becoming clearer. You begin sensing what to say yes to and what to walk away from without needing long explanations. Your decisions feel easier. You're not second-guessing yourself constantly. God sharpens your inner guidance before moving you forward so you don't step into the next season confused or misaligned. You'll also notice shifts in conversations around you. People speak differently to you. Some relationships naturally distance themselves, while others feel more supportive and aligned. New ideas come up in casual talks. Opportunities seem to appear without effort. Nothing feels forced. Things simply flow towards you, and you don't feel drained by them. These signs are confirmation, not coincidence. God always prepares the inside before changing the outside. By the time the physical proof arrives, whether it's a message, an opportunity, or a literal alert, you won't be surprised. You'll feel calm. You'll smile quietly. And you'll say to yourself, I felt this coming. That's how you know it's real. When it arrives with peace instead of panic and certainty instead of shock. Stop explaining yourself. Let results speak. Chosen one, this season comes with one simple but powerful instruction. Be silent. Not silent in fear, but silent in confidence. You don't need to explain where you're going, what you're planning, or why things are changing. For a long time, you felt the need to justify yourself, your choices, your delays, your struggles. That season is over. God didn't bring you this far so you could keep convincing people. He brought you here so your life could speak on its own. Over-explaining is often a sign that we're seeking permission or approval. But what God is doing in your life no longer requires either. Some people will never understand your journey, no matter how clearly you explain it. And that's okay. Understanding is not a requirement for alignment. God's plans don't need public agreement to succeed. Silence protects what's growing. When you announce things too early, you expose them to doubt, opinions, and unnecessary energy. God knows this. That's why He often moves quietly. The strongest transformations happen without noise. You don't need to post every win or share every update. Let things settle. Let them stabilize. Let them mature. You'll notice that people who once questioned you are now watching more closely. They may not say anything, but they see the difference. Your calm, your clarity, your steady progress, these are answers louder than words. This is divine justice in its purest form. No arguments, no debates, just undeniable change. What's meant for you doesn't need defending. Real blessings don't come with constant explanations. They arrive with authority and peace. When something is truly aligned, it holds its own weight. You don't have to protect it with words or convince others of its value. So move quietly. Work steadily. Let your results arrive naturally. When the time is right, people won't ask you how it happened. They'll simply recognize that it did. This transfer comes with responsibility. Chosen one, what's arriving in your life now is not just a blessing to enjoy. It's a trust being placed in your hands. God doesn't release provision without purpose. This transfer carries meaning. It's a sign that you've reached a level where heaven sees you as dependable. God trusts your heart more than before, and that's why this season feels different. It doesn't feel careless or flashy. It feels sacred. You're being called to steward what comes next. Stewardship means handling something with care, wisdom, and intention. It's not about rushing to spend or prove anything. It's about building something that lasts. God isn't just meeting your needs. He's positioning you to manage growth. That requires patience and awareness. You're learning to pause before acting, to think long-term instead of reacting emotionally. This season is also about shifting from survival to contribution. For a long time, your focus had to be on getting through the day, staying afloat, and protecting yourself. That was necessary. But now, God is expanding your vision. You're being invited to help, uplift, and create impact beyond yourself. Not in loud or dramatic ways, but in meaningful ones. Even small decisions made with integrity can influence lives you may never see. You may notice that your desires are changing. Things that once felt urgent now feel less important. You're more thoughtful about where your time, energy, and resources go. That's growth. Responsibility doesn't feel heavy when it comes from alignment. It feels grounding. You're not being burdened. You're being trusted. What you do next matters because it sets the tone for future seasons. Choices made now will shape stability, not just success. God isn't asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to be intentional, to choose wisdom over impulse, to choose alignment over pressure, to choose purpose over appearance. This transfer is an invitation to step into a higher level of maturity, and the fact that it feels meaningful instead of overwhelming is proof that you're ready to carry it well. Accept it, don't question it. The final test is acceptance. Don't shrink. Don't say, "I don't deserve this." God already decided you do. Say yes with gratitude, not fear. Say yes without guilt. This chapter is not about struggle anymore. It's about stability, clarity, and forward motion. The transfer has already been released. Your only role now is to stay ready, stay humble, and stay aligned.